Hey everyone, I'm Mind, and this is set number 71860, Lloyd's Titan Mech 15th anniversary from the March 2026 Ninjago Legacy Wave. This set contains 1,293 pieces, 3 minifigures including one exclusive 15th anniversary minifigure, and it will retail for $129.99 in the US when it officially releases on March 1st, 2026. This set was gifted to me early for review by the LEGO Group through the LEGO Ambassador Network, but all opinions expressed in this video are entirely my own. I will be doing early reviews of all of the March 2026 Ninjago sets. It's only 2 sets, it's this and a 4+ set, but stay tuned, the other one's coming. And if you missed it, I already have full reviews of every single January set up on the channel right now, and I'm also reviewing the new LEGO Pokemon sets. So if you enjoy this kind of content and you want to see more, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Liking and subscribing does a ton to help support me in the channel, and it also helps YouTube to show you my videos more often. So thank you all very much for the support, and now let's get into the review. So, here is the Ninjago Legacy Lloyd's Titan Mech, the 5th official entry in the Ninjago Titan Mech line. This line started all the way back in 2019 with the original version of Lloyd's Titan Mech, however it really took off with Zane's Titan Mech in 2021, which introduced a lot of the aspects that the Titan Mechs later became known for. We went on to get Jay's Titan Mech in 2023 and Cole's Titan Mech in 2024, and now in 2026, instead of getting Kai's Titan Mech or Nia's Titan Mech, they've gone back and remade Lloyd's Titan Mech for the 15th anniversary. I personally think that for the Ninjago Legacy line, this was a really great decision to make. The Titan Mechs are a fan favorite, but the Lloyd's Titan Mech always felt a little out of place with everything else, because one of the biggest features of every other Lloyd's Titan Mech is the fact that they're a big mech that has knees, but that original Lloyd's Titan Mech did not, and that's probably the biggest change that was made here. But this set was also sort of an opportunity to be a full reimagining of the mech. It's not like a direct one-to-one remake, it does a lot of things very differently. I'm actually going to be doing a separate video where we go through both mechs side by side and take a look at everything that's the same and everything that's different. In this video, I mostly want to focus on this set just like in its own right. But yeah, just conceptually, for the 15th anniversary, I do think this set was a really good choice. Initial impressions too, I mean, I'm very happy with how it turned out. I think this thing looks amazing. I honestly don't think the box art for this set does a great job of showing this mech's shape and its posability, but we'll take a closer look at posing and stability later in this video. For now, let me move the camera up a little bit closer so we can take a look at every single detail of this build. Starting at the feet, I really think the word sleek is the best way to describe them. They use lots of very rounded, shinier pieces, and I appreciate that they're not too, over-detailed here. There's not a bunch of stickers in the feet that didn't feel the need to bring the green down here. No, it's just white as the main color, actual gold pieces for detailing, and then a little bit of dark bluish gray on the bottom of the foot. I actually really love the inclusion of that color. It creates a nice break between the top of the foot and the bottom of the foot, and allows you to create that almost shoe-like shape. But choosing dark bluish gray specifically is really smart because it helps tie in the colors of the rest of the build. Because as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, a lot of the times the more mechanical LEGO parts are gray or black or light gray, and they can be recolored, but they're not often recolored. So in most mech sets, no matter the color scheme, you're usually going to have a little bit of gray in it here at the joints. Because the gray is included on the feet as well though, it makes it feel like an intentional part of the color scheme, rather than just being a necessity for the joints. I of course also really love the inclusion of the SCCBS armor pieces in here. I find it so impressive how versatile that piece ends up being. Originally being designed for shoulder armor on much smaller mechs, now it creates the shoe on a significantly larger one. There is rubber inserts in the bottoms of the feet, which is something we've been seeing in mechs for a few years now, but that of course helps create friction to allow the mech to stand up a little bit more. The feet connect to the legs with 2 ball joints using this Technic cylinder system. I believe the first mech that did this with the legs was Kai's Climber mech, but then it also went on to be reused in Cole's Titan mech, and then the Fire Knight mech last year, I believe. But yeah, it's a really effective system, so I see why they keep using it. You can turn the feet side to side quite a bit, but also move the feet forward and back, and there's a lot of friction in there to help the mech maintain its pose once you have it how you like. The way the Technic connects back to the legs, I think, is done a little bit differently than those other mechs. This is a Technic piece that has a ball socket at the front right here, and it connects to a ball connection there. But it's definitely sturdy and quite effective. The lower legs here look phenomenal. I especially love this rounded section with the hats in the middle. This little divot that it has creates some really nice texture while also keeping that very high-tech and cartoony feel. And I love how naturally the rounded sides transition into this rounded part at the front. The mech, as I pointed out before, of course, does have knees. That's one of the big features of this mech that the original did not have. And it's a knee system we've seen before. It connects on 3 ball joints. It can turn about 90 degrees. Having all 3 of these here creates a lot of friction to help hold the leg in place. On the front of the knee, there's this armor piece to be like a golden knee pad, and that can be moved a little bit because it attaches on a bar. The purpose of that is so that when you bend the knee, you can bend the knee pad back with it, so that way it doesn't create an awkward gap in the knee. Sure, you might see the inside of the joint a little bit, but it's mostly covered up. If that piece wasn't there, the leg would look like this when bent. And then we come to the upper thigh, which is built using these very geometric General Grievous Starfighter cockpit pieces from LEGO Star Wars, recolored in sand green for the first time. At this point, I kind of feel like this piece has become a part of Ninjago's identity, where just seeing this piece in a set makes it feel like a Ninjago set. This is the designer Lychee Wing's signature piece. He tries to put it in at least one set a year, but funnily enough, this one was not him. So we got two different ones this year. We got this in sand green in this set, and then in dark green in the Old Town. But yeah, it's funny to see that that's catching on. But no, it seriously is a very effective way of creating that upper thigh shape. Here we have our first sticker too, and I like that the set's not covered in stickers. I really love this detailing on the side of the legs, especially with this sand green pointed piece. That really makes this feel like a Titan mech. The original Lloyd's Titan mech had that, Zane's Titan mech has it in white, so I'm glad they kept it here. The very pointy shape feels iconic. We do have another sticker on the side of the leg right here with two symbols on it. I'm honestly not sure what those symbols are supposed to be. I don't think it's Ninjago, and it is the same symbol, just one is flipped upside down. And then this is probably one of my favorite little details in the set. This is just brick-built texturing, which I'm pretty sure is meant to make up the shape of the letter G. It's positioned correctly, so on each side it's always read as the letter G, and you can see that as standing for Lloyd's last name Garmadon, or as standing for the fact that he's the green ninja and green starts with G. Either way, I think it's really cool they managed to represent that with actual LEGO pieces instead of stickers. On the inside of the upper leg, there are some exhausts, which I think is a really cool detail. They are ever so slightly posable in there. And then there's two different points of articulation here. First, there's upper leg articulation. Cole's Titan mech also had something very similar to this. Now this one's a bit more limited because of those exhausts. You can't spin the leg in at all, and you can only spin it out this much. But from like a realism perspective, I think that makes sense. I don't know why you'd want to splay the legs out any more than that. But I think it's really cool to have that articulation at all, because plenty of mechs do not have articulation there. And then of course the legs actually connect to the waist on double ratchet joints, and most big mechs have been using these for years. But yeah, you can kick the leg forward, kick it back, splay it outwards if you want. Pretty big actual range of motion there. Your limitations are just what poses can this actually hold and what other parts of the build are going to get in the way. But yeah, personally, I'm perfectly happy with how far that can move. Look at that, I've actually got it holding that pose. That's not going to last forever, but that's kind of impressive. We're not even in the posing section yet, but I let go of it and I noticed it wasn't falling over super fast. So I tried to see if I could keep it standing up, and yes, I could. I did not expect that at all. That is impressive. The waist has one of those pointy triangular pieces hanging down, and then we come up to the main torso and cockpit area. The actual shaping here is phenomenal. I love the way the C-bound blade pieces are used for detailing. Normally when we see this piece, it's sort of like coming off the end of a blade or off the end of like a vehicle. I don't know if I've ever seen it like built inside of a build. But no, you attach it with some Technic and then you tuck it under this triangular piece here. So it makes it look like the gold parts actually frame the green parts. I think that looks super cool, and there is still movement here, so you can move them out of the way if you wanted to for some reason. That does not look particularly good, but when you've got them in place, it's absolutely going to stay in place unless you're actively trying to move it. You're probably seeing some articulation here. Yes, this build does have waist articulation. It can turn this far this way, and this far the other way. Funnily enough, it actually connects in the same system as the small $20 Elemental Power Mechs. This newer, like, white brick with a ratchet joint attached. Funny to see that on such a huge build, but hey, if it works, it works. Turning the mech to the sides, of course, a lot of this is typically covered up by the arms, but as, like, the mech's chest extends outwards, they keep a somewhat rounded shape. I appreciate that it's actually covered up from all sides. There's no, like, really awkward angles here. And on its back, the mech has, like, this winged backpack, which we'll take a closer look at in just a moment. Moving up inside the torso, though, here's the spot for Lloyd to sit. The head that attaches up top can be moved out of the way. Lloyd fits in pretty nicely, even with his armor, which is nice to see. And there's a place to keep his swords in the back, too, which is actually not clips. They slide into, like, two of the Among Us bar pieces, which that's very nice to see. I'm always happy when there's a place to actually keep minifigure accessories when they're in a vehicle, so seeing them do something a little bit different than just clips is neat. Nothing too crazy going on inside the cockpit. We have some standard, like, printed control panel pieces. That is just a standard LEGO part, though, nothing special for this set. It would have been cool to get some sort of stickered control panel in here referencing something from the show, because I don't know if I missed anything, but there doesn't really seem to be any, like, deep-cut references in this set like a lot of the other anniversary sets have had. It really is just pretty much a to-the-point remake of the original set, which, hey, that's what it's going for, and I think it does a great job at that. But yeah, that whole, like, big celebration of Ninjago's history that the other three Legacy sets so far have had, not as present in this set. I like this little bit of detailing right here. They had another gap in the bricks, so they filled it with that same piece that they used to be the exhaust in the legs. And it's a small thing, but it breaks things up and keeps the mech having that very mechanical feel. The head of the mech I'm very close to liking, but something feels like it's missing a little bit. The horns I think are awesome using the dragon hilt pieces, and also this part right here, it's like the LEGO DC action pose piece. I believe this is our first time getting it recolored in gold, which is really nice to see. I feel like that's a really useful part to have for detailing. I like that they used lime green for like the eyes of the mech. It's very subtle. It uses like a 1x2 rounded plate too to create a really unique shape, and then the golden frog for the beard is awesome. I know using frogs in creative ways is a thing a lot of LEGO sets do these days, but on on this mech especially, I really like it. The only part I really don't like are these exposed studs right here. It makes it feel like there's something missing from the head, and it's not even the fact that they're studs. I think it's just because the sand green's open and it's not used as like a trim. So maybe if you put some white plates on top there, that might help things. Or maybe like these white wedge slopes, if you put one of those on each side, that might help. But yeah, I don't know. I think it looks fine as is, but it just feels like a little something's missing. And there's a little bit that comes out the back of the head with a hole, which I think gives it like a very classic sci-fi robot feel. As I showed, the head connects to the neck on a mini ball joint so you can move it around a bunch, and then the neck connects to the body on 2 clips so you can hinge it out of the way. So that way it's easier to get a minifigure in and out, but you can also have the mech like look from side to side. The mech has these big shoulder pads that attach to the torso and ball joints. When it comes to building a mech, there's always a question of like, do you attach the shoulder pads to the torso or do you attach it to the arms? And I think the torso is a really smart decision because just like with the knee pads, this makes it so when you move the arm, you can move the shoulder pads separately. So that way the direction of the shoulder pad can move out of the way to accommodate the arm. And it just gives you a lot more freedom with how you pose things, because you can move the shoulder pad out of the way, pose the arm, and then put it back down. The shoulder pads themselves use the Master of the Mountain armor pieces with a sticker at the top that says Titan on them, which actually, I don't know, have any of the other Titan mechs actually explicitly called out on the mech that they're a Titan mech? I'm not sure, but either way, that's cool to like reference the fact that this is a part of that line. Using these pieces inverted too as detailing feels very unique. And of course, the shoulder pad on the other arm is the exact same thing. We have these rounded plates on the shoulder pads to make them feel a little less flat, and then the actual ball joint is very, like, out in the open, like, you can definitely see that that's there, and on another build that might bother me, but again, they did a really good job of making the gray feel like a natural part of the build, and at the end of the day, this is a mech, it's gonna have mechanical-looking parts, so honestly, I don't mind this at all, I think this looks perfectly fine here. Now, the shoulder pads each have a little stickered flag piece hanging down from them, however, the flag is different on each one. This side is Lloyd's current symbol, the Ninjago letter L, and he actually started using that in Season 11, this is a set based off Season 11, so I think it makes sense to include here. However, the other flag, this is what I really love, and I guess this is the aspect of this set that's calling back to Ninjago's history. This one actually has Lloyd's dragon symbol, which is one of his original symbols. It's not his very first symbol, his very first symbol was the snake that's on his minifigure, but I believe it was Golden Lloyd in 2013 that was the first one to swap the snake for this symbol, and then from that point onward, he no longer had the snake and he had the dragon instead. However, I think they ditched these symbols altogether after Hands of Time, so I think it's cool to see that for Legacy, even though he didn't have it in Season 11, they still brought back that symbol for this mech, while also still including the symbol that's actually accurate to that time. The arms connect on a double ratchet joint just like the legs, so you can move them up and down like this, as well as rotate them forward and rotate them back. The upper arm's of course very thin and not super detailed, it's just got a few Nexonite shield pieces, but that makes sense because it has to be covered by the shoulder pad, which brings in a lot of that detail that's missing. But connected to that is a second double ratchet joint, and this is actually meant to be the elbow, so you can bend the arm backwards if you want for some reason, all the way forward, as well as rotate the arm outwards. Huge range of motion there, lots of different things you can do. The forearm uses this huge golden wheel piece, which I love. The original Lloyd's Titan mech also used wheel pieces here, but they were a little bit smaller. And what I really like about this one is the way the rest of the arm is sort of inset inside the wheel. Right, the wheel's not completely flat on the outside, so this gray part of the arm goes into the wheel, and this white part comes back out the other side. We've got some technicals here which do serve a purpose, which we will explore in just a moment. But yeah, this part of the arm is nicely covered up, even from the bottom. And finally, at the end of the arm, there's of course a ball joint, and that's where the hand connects. The hand design feels pretty standard for a mech, 4 of the smaller robot arm pieces, one little finger right here. On the top of the hand, we've got some green elemental energy. And of course, yeah, that's on a ball joint, so lots of things you can do here. And of course, there's a Technic pin on the inside to hold on to an accessory. Opposite arm is exactly the same, the only difference is this one by default is holding an accessory, which is of course this giant golden sword. This is the golden blade piece that I believe was introduced in Crystallized, so of course quite a few years after the original Lloyd's Titan mech. I also really like how the Seabound blade piece fits in with it. It's cool to bring back the hats here on the hilt because those are also on the legs, and the actual sword handle here is red, just like on the original. My favorite part about this is the little chain that hangs down with this mop piece on the bottom in sand green. I believe this was recolored in this color for that big aquarium set, so it's cool to see it show up somewhere else. And I like how it gives a tassel to Lloyd's big mech sword because his smaller sword that he comes with in a lot of other sets also has a tassel, so it almost makes this feel like a scaled up version of that sword. Of course though, this just connects on with the Technic pin, so it can be removed, and you can place it into the other hand if you want, or you may have noticed when I showed you the mech's back, there's a Technic pin back here, and that's where you could store the sword if you don't want it in the mech's hands. Speaking of the mech's back, it has these 4 wings that are attached to it. There's 2 big ones at the top and 2 smaller ones underneath, and these all attach on ball joints, so they can actually be posed quite a bit. They're brick built, and I honestly think they look quite pretty. All the tiling on the big ones especially I think looks amazing. However, I will say in terms of like accuracy to the original, this is the part of the set that I think changes the most. The original Lloyd's Titan mech did have big wings on the back, but they were giant transparent bright green blades, while this this one has less individual wings, but they're bigger, and then they're actually brick-built, and there's no transparency at all. Personally, I do prefer the way the original mech does it. I just think those transparent blades are so iconic. And while this is cool, it does make it feel like there's something missing here. However, that trade-off was not for nothing, because there is a secondary feature with these. You can actually remove the wings from the mech's back, just like this. Do the other ones in the same way. You can see it leaves some axles on this bit and some axle holes on this bit. Then connect those two removed wings together, and it actually becomes a shield for Lloyd's Titan mech. The shield has these blue Technic pins on the back, and those can slot into the Technic holes in the arms that I pointed out before, so then you can have another option for how to display your mech. But that's not all, you can also remove these bottom wings, also just slide them out of these Technic holes, and then reattach them to the sides of the hands right here. So one on this hand, and one on the other hand. I'm probably gonna have to remove the shield for this actually. But yeah, one on the other hand fits in right here. And that's actually pretty cool. You have extra blades on the mech's hands that you can use as weapons. I don't love the way the shield works, I'll be honest. From this angle, it does look really cool, and I think it's an awesome option that we've never really seen in a Ninjago Titan mech. A giant shield, like that is new, and it's very creative. What I'm not the biggest fan of, actually, is just the way it connects, because it sort of forces you to pose this in a somewhat awkward way. But if you have it posed any way where you can see the inside of the shield, it's just a bunch of sort of ugly anti-studs. And in my opinion, the wings do look so cool in the back that when they're not there, it does feel like something's missing. So while I like the idea, and I'm not really going to fault the set for having more options, personally, in my opinion, if you guys are going to get this set, just leave the wings on the back. That's what looks best. The smaller blades are actually very cool, though. They don't change the look too much to remove them, and I actually do really like how the mech looks when it has one of those in each hand. If you don't want the wings on the mech at all, though, you can actually remove the entire winged backpack. It just connects on two Technic pins. And the mech's back is actually textured and meant to be viewed and displayed even without that. And that's because this is actually cross-compatible with another Ninjago set. If you have Cole's Titan mech from 2024, it actually has a very similar thing on its back. A huge, wing structure that attaches at the center. And it also comes off in a very similar way. So if you want, you can actually swap the back attachments between these two sets. You can put the new Lloyd's Titan mech on the back of Cole's Titan mech. There's how that looks from the front. Maybe a bit silly, but hey, it's something you can do. And you can reattach Cole's backpack to Lloyd's Titan mech. And even though the official wings probably do look better on this mech, honestly, this is pretty cool. But now with everything put back together, finally in terms of looks, here's a full look at the back of the mech. And I think for a back of a mech, it's fine. The colors are all correct, there's nothing weird or awkward in here. Obviously a lot of anti-studs, which would have been nice to see covered up, but it's not the end of the world. Anti-studs are a part of LEGO. I think the anti-studs on the wings definitely look the worst out of any of them, but that again is just a LEGO thing. You're gonna see a bunch of anti-studs on the backs of wings. It looks good from the sides, it looks good from the front. I'm honestly happy enough with this. But now let's talk about and show off some posing and stability. This is the thing that I was the most worried about with this set. I actually got to see this set back in September as a part of LEGO's Fan Media Days, and while I thought it was really cool they were remaking this set, I was very, very unimpressed by its stability. In fact, I was super concerned about it. I didn't talk about this much on the channel at the time because I told myself, you know what, I didn't build it myself. This was the copy they were showing off at Fan Media Days. A bunch of people were touching it. I don't know if a piece was forgotten in the building process or what was going on, but if the stability was like what I experienced at Fan Media Days, I was really prepared to not recommend this set to you guys. Because when I was going hands-on and getting my footage, I felt like every time I touched it, it tipped over or something fell off. And I was really bummed to see that something being sold as an upgrade over the original had so many issues. But I'm very happy to say that building it up in person, that has not been my experience at all with my own copy. So yeah, I don't know what was going on. Again, tons of people were touching it throughout the day. So maybe somebody broke something and it wasn't put back together correctly. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I really haven't had many issues with stability on this thing. And honestly, compared to some other big mechs I've reviewed, it's fallen apart less than those, which is a good thing. Because that's the thing with Titan mechs, is they're a little more adult focused and a little less play focused. So even though they're super posable and there's a lot you can do with them, there are often parts of them where it's like, okay, pose this and don't touch it, because if you touch it too much, it's gonna fall apart. And that definitely still is the case with this mech, but it's a lot less of it. The main fragile parts are definitely the knee pads. These fall off super easily if you're playing with that too much. The cockpit pieces that make up the upper legs can sometimes fall off if you're messing with those too much. But honestly, the biggest point of instability is actually the waist. Because it is only that single rigid Technic joint and the upper part is so heavy, it's very easy to accidentally pull that off, especially if you're moving it around too much. That's definitely the part of the build that I've had fall off the most, but the good thing is the rest of the build is so sturdy that if it falls off, it's not really gonna shatter. The torso, head, arms, and everything stay together. The winged backpack might fall off, but that also stays together. And the legs are going to stay together too. So it's a super easy repair, but yeah, that's definitely the weakest point in the build. So it's certainly something to be thinking about when posing. Speaking of posing, I'm very happy with it in this set. It's got the right amount of joints, the right amount of friction, where I feel like you can really do a lot with it. It is tough to compare it to the other Titan mechs, but I would say it is pretty similar to Cole's. You can get it in a wide stance like this. This is a very basic pose, but I think it's the pose to put it in on a shelf. You can put it in a nice kneeling pose thanks to the knees. That's pretty cool. You can do a nice like action walking pose like this. I actually really like this one. Overall though, I'm very satisfied with the posability here. Obviously, just like any other big mech, yeah, you're gonna have to be careful with posing. It's not like a $20 set where you can do whatever you want, set it down and it'll stay up. No, obviously this is big, it's heavy, so you gotta make sure you're distributing the weight correctly. But honestly, even comparing it to Cole's Titan mech, I think this thing stays together much better than that one does when posing. And the range of motion's good, the weight distribution's good. To me at least, it does actually feel like there's a lot you can do with it. In terms of size, here's how the new Lloyd's Titan mech looks standing next to the original Lloyd's Titan mech. Definitely a big increase here. It's not just the added knees, right? Like, everything is bigger. So it makes sense why so many things are done differently this time around. It is just working at a bigger scale. Again, in terms of like aesthetics and everything, I'm going to cover all that in a separate video, but if you want to see the two side by side, here they are. And then here's an updated look at the full Titan mech lineup, replacing the original Lloyd's Titan mech with the new Lloyd's Titan mech, next to the other three that have been released, Cole's, Jay's, and Zane's. You can see in terms of size, it's actually very comparable to Cole's. Cole's is still slightly taller. I mean, it's definitely taller if you count the wings. But without the wings, yeah, it's a little bit taller still. I think their heads are at about the same position. Lloyd's is slightly shorter, but obviously the shoulders in Cole's mech make it bigger. However, in terms of like bulk, I think Lloyd's is definitely the bulkiest of the four. And even though Cole's is the most physically large, Lloyd's is actually the new biggest in terms of piece count. So I guess it's up to you now which one you consider the biggest. But honestly, looking at all four of these together, I think I really like this one. This is making me like this set a lot more. I mean, I like all four of these sets, don't get me wrong, but in my head I'm like, oh, Cole's is the best. Obviously, it's the best. And I still think I probably think that, but honestly, Lloyd's is growing on me a lot. Like, I like the set anyway, but seeing it next to the others, it might actually be my favorite of the four. I'll need some time to think about that, obviously, and see if that's what I really believe. But yeah, this is a really strong addition to this lineup. I think it fits in much better than the original ever did. But anyway, I think that's about all I have to say for the actual build of Lloyd's Titan mech for this video. However, there's a few more things we have to show. First up, the one and only side build in the set, the little anniversary display. These, of course, come in all the 15th anniversary Ninjago Legacy sets this year, and each of them is pretty much the same build. It's a stand that holds an Elemental Master, one of the original Elemental Masters from the Serpentine Wars, and in the case of this set, it's Hibernus, the Master of Ice. However, we'll take a closer look at him with the minifigures. The stand itself, though, yeah, it's the same one you've seen in the other sets. It's got that printed Ninjago 15 tile at the front, which is awesome to see. It can connect to the other stands from the other sets. And then the only unique thing about it is on the inside here, there is a light blue plate to represent the elemental power of ice. You can't see it when it's fully closed up, but yeah, every elemental master has a plate on the inside to represent their elemental power, so that's the one for ice here. Coming to the minifigures now, here's the first one in the set, the 15th anniversary legacy version of Lloyd. And of course, this guy was in the January wave, he came in 2 sets then, so I've already talked about him. But in short, I do like this suit. He switches to gold instead of gunmetal gray, which the original minifigure used. And that is a bit of a shame to see, I would have preferred they stuck with the original. However, I will admit the gold does look pretty good in this outfit. It does feel like such a classic callback to the original designs. And while I do think I still prefer the original, it's so cool to revisit it here. It is a little surreal to have like a ZX suit in a season 11 set, because even though from like an anniversary perspective I totally get it, I think it makes sense to have the same suit across the entire wave instead of doing like a bunch of random suits and getting like a new legacy season 11 Lloyd. I'd much rather have this. But I don't know, considering season 11 was after the first wave of the first round of legacy, this original suit was so old by the time that original set came out, it feels weird to see this suit piloting that mech. But yeah, it's awesome to have another way to get this guy. And he of course makes sense to come in this set. I mean, it's Lloyd's Titan mech, this is Lloyd. He's got that original snake symbol in the back, which I pointed out before, which I absolutely adore. So glad they brought that back here. And the metallic gold printing on his torso looks awesome. Yeah, if you want to hear my full thoughts on this minifigure, go check out my review of the anniversary display probably, or the old town. But it's good generally, I like it. But now it's time for the 2 exclusive minifigures in the set, starting with this guy, Grimfax. Grimfax was one of the major villains in Ninjago Season 11. He was the original King of the Neverrealm, one of the leaders of the Blizzard Samurai, of course under the Ice Emperor and General Vex. And then he helps Lloyd towards the end of the season and like redeems himself. And he did have this unique design in the show. However, in terms of sets, we never got him. We only had the standard Blizzard Samurai and General Vex. So if you watch the show, this was a very notable missing character. He never appeared after Season 11, but in Season 11, yeah, he was pretty important. So if they're going to go back and remake a Season 11 set, he was the perfect character to include, and I think they did him absolutely perfectly. He's got the same exact Blizzard Samurai aesthetic from 2019. However, instead of his armor being dark red or gunmetal gray, it's dark blue instead. Then he's got gray on his pants, gray on one arm, but the other arm's dark blue. His face print's of course new and exclusive to this set, because we haven't gotten Blizzard Samurai in ages, and it does actually match his appearance on the show. I love all the icy scars on him, I think that's a really cool detail. And he's got a double-sided face as well. One's like this angry screaming expression, and the other side's this very sinister smile. His helmet piece is the original Blizzard Samurai helmet mold brought back here for the first time in 7 years. but it actually has a new color. It still has the transparent light blue to be the ice, but for the first time ever, we're getting the actual helmet in dark blue, when previously we'd only gotten it in dark red and gunmetal gray. Now, if you look at the show, it's kind of unclear what color his helmet's supposed to be. It might be gunmetal gray, or it might be dark blue, depending on the lighting, you can't really tell. But I like that they chose to go with the dark blue instead of the gunmetal gray, because if you think it's supposed to be gunmetal gray, that piece exists, just swap it to that one. But if you think dark blue is correct, well, then you have this option here. And it just helps this guy feel more unique from the Blizzard Samurai we got in the past. So I don't know if this is the more accurate option, but I love having the choice. And this is just such a phenomenal minifigure to include in this set. His accessory is pretty cool too. It's like this icy double battle axe. It fits him perfectly. Yeah, this guy's great. I never thought we'd get a Grimfax minifigure after 2019 came and passed, but the 15th anniversary in this set was the perfect opportunity. So glad that he's here. And finally, we have the exclusive 15th anniversary minifigure in the set, Hibernus, the Master of Ice. And I think this guy's pretty much perfectly done. Just like the other 15th anniversary Elemental Masters we've gotten, he's got like a little power blast coming out of his hand. And it's a small thing, but I think that's so cool that it actually shows him using the element of ice. Elemental powers are weirdly underrepresented in Ninjago sets, despite it being like a huge focus of the show. Most of the time in sets, characters just come with swords, or scythes, or nunchucks. The only character who really ever gets their elemental powers like as pieces is Wildfire. So I think it's so awesome that with these minifigures, every single minifigure is coming with a piece that represents their element. And we've got this little ice crystal here to be Hibernus' power. But of course, you could take that off and give it to Zane instead if you wanted to. With that removed though, here's a full look at the minifigure, and this guy's pulled pretty much straight from the show. He's got the Moro hair in white, which is exactly correct. Very nice dark blue robe with white detailing, and that robe continues into his legs, and yes, he does have leg printing here, which makes me very happy to see. His face print too, I believe, is also new and exclusive. It's a smiling old man with a beard, so I thought it might have been reused from, like, Santa or something. But yeah, if you turn him around, he does have an alternate face that's angry. And I don't believe we've ever gotten a Santa minifigure that's angry. I checked Bricklink, I couldn't see this anywhere, so yeah, I'm pretty sure this is new for this guy. Which is honestly kind of a surprise to see, because I think they absolutely could have found a face to reuse that would have worked. So I'm so glad to see they didn't do that. I really don't have much else to say about this minifigure. He is a fairly basic design, but I think they executed well. Looking at a show counterpart, I think the only part they got wrong is they have, like, a little bit of neck printing in the show. But I understand why they changed that. It makes the torso more universal, and also they don't always do skin printing the best, so they probably just covered him up. And then like the snowflake pendant that he has is a different color in the show. It should be like a lighter blue instead of that sand blue. But again, that's a very minor thing. I don't really mind that. No, I think this is one of the best translated Elemental Masters we've had so far. Incredibly happy with how this turned out. Also, it makes sense to include him in this set. This is the Neverrealm set. If we're not going to have Zane, we should have some sort of ice character. So that's why I've got him here. But now, overall, what are my thoughts on this set? I've honestly ended up liking this set a lot more than I was expecting to. Not that I wasn't expecting to like, it looked cool when I saw it at Fan Media Days, but I was really nervous it was going to be too fragile, and I didn't know how I felt about them going back and remaking Lloyd's Titan Mech, because even though it made sense, I don't know, getting that before Kai or Nia felt a little bit odd. But having this in hand, I adore it. It actually might be my favorite Titan Mech yet, which I didn't know Cole's could ever be dethroned. And I'm not saying it's dethroned yet, but it might be. I gotta give it some time. I think it does a really good job of staying recognizable as the same vehicle as the original, while also doing a lot to differentiate itself. The actual shaping and texturing on this thing is gorgeous. I think especially the way the legs are done is amazing. In terms of things I don't like, I do definitely prefer the transparent wings that the original had. I think getting rid of those was probably a mistake, but the new wings don't look bad. I just think they could look better. The shield feature feels a little unnecessary to me. Like, it's cool in theory, but in execution, it's alright. Minifigure selection is awesome for the 3 minifigures that we get, however, I wish it included more minifigures. 3 minifigures for $130 is definitely a little underwhelming, even if 2 of them are exclusive. Getting a new Akito would have been awesome here because she's a fan favorite character, she's super expensive on the aftermarket, so coming up with a way to make her again would have been great. Or if they didn't want to do an exclusive minifigure, I don't know, throw a few more regular ninja in this set. You have the legacy molds around. We now know that Jay and Zane are not coming in any more sets this year, making them the rarest of the legacy ninja. So maybe throw one or both of them in here. Specifically, Zane probably would have made sense in a Neverrealm set. And then the price, $130. When I first heard that price, I thought, that doesn't sound very good. But honestly, after building it up, it's not as bad as I thought. The minifigure selection's honestly the biggest thing that feels like it doesn't match the price. But the Titan mechs are generally pretty well priced, and I think like Cole's mech, that is a good $100 value aside from the minifigure selection. And looking at these two side by side, with the extra bulk this set has, does it feel like $30 more than that set? Probably. And especially comparing it to the original was $90, I believe. This only being $40 more honestly feels like a huge increase in size for that price difference. So I definitely wouldn't call this a good price point, but it's not nearly as bad as I thought. The mech honestly impressed me with its posing and stability. Again, the copy I saw at Fan Media Days was not like this. But yeah, it only has maybe like 2 or 3 weak or fragile parts, and none of them are really gonna affect too much. The waist joint's the only like kind of annoying thing, but even still, it's built to be sturdy enough that if it does fall apart, you can put it back together super quickly. That's honestly honestly one of my biggest critiques of Cole's Titan mech is while it's beautiful and I love how it poses, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm posing it, pieces are constantly flying off of it and I have to go, okay, where does this go? And that's not as much of a case with this one. So yeah, if you're a fan of the Ninjago Titan mech line, I honestly think this is a great addition to the collection. Box art does not do it justice, and the price admittedly is a little bit high, but if it's within your budget and it is something that interests you, I do think it is worth picking up. But of course, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think of this set in the comments below. And let me know in the comments, which 2026 March Ninjago set do you want to see an early review of next? There's only one set left. Can you name it? Let me know in the comments. But as for this one, I think that's about all I have to say. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.